Alright guys, welcome to episode 68 of EDH Commander Challenge. I am your host BT, who will be doing the play-by-play and commentary for this week's episode. Before we get to that, a couple things to mention. First, shout out to our subscribers, our family if you will, who are now approaching the halfway mark to 800 subscribers. So you guys are awesome. Appreciate the love and support. You're the best. Also, another thing to mention, don't forget to stay tuned at the end of the episode to find out who won our latest giveaway. We'll be taking home a foil promo Maze of Ith, as well as our newest segment, Cardboard MVP, where we have a quick look at the card that did the most work for each player at the end of every episode. One unfortunate thing I do have to mention is our latest four-person multi is still working right now. It was the raw data footage for it. I almost said raw data, but raw footage I should say, was about just over 4 hours long. We're still working on cutting it down so you don't have to spend your entire afternoon watching a single episode of the show. I'd like to say I'm about 60% positive we'll probably have it out before next week's Sunday, which was the last Sunday of November. But I can't say 100% for sure just yet, because there's still a lot of work to do. Not to mention the fact that the weather's getting pretty bad here with the snow here in Montreal. Not to mention the fact that it's getting closer to Christmas and my birthday. But thankfully, those are both good things. Next order of business also is a quick shout out to Gamers Cafe for allowing us to film this week's episode on their premises. So go check them out on Facebook. They got everything from delicious meals to all kinds of things relating to card games, board games, computer games, console games, and did I mention delicious food? So go check them out. That's Gamers Cafe. Now we have two new members of the BT Game Night family who will be taking part in this week's episode. We have Jason, who will be playing his Ghave Guru of Spores Abzan deck. And by the way, both members mulliganed so many times they decided to keep a hand with 6 cards. That's a little different from what I usually see on the channel, but this is what their hands look like. For Jason, he has Enlightened Tutor, Ashnod's Altar, Skull Clamp, Primal Vigor, Godless Shrine, and Verdant Catacombs. And his opponent, Etienne, is playing Tasigur the Golden Fang. And he keeps a hand with Drowned Catacombs, 2 Forests, Shadow of Doubt, Pernicious Deed, and finally Pithing Needle. So without any further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoy it once again. And stay tuned for the end of the episode, as I mentioned, to find out who won our giveaway. Let's go. Jason plays a Godless Shrine untapped, taking 2 damage, and casts a Skull Clamp before passing. Etienne plays a Drowned Catacomb into play tapped and passes. Jason plays an Arid Mesa and passes. Etienne plays a Forest and passes. During his end step, Jason sacks his Mesa, taking 1 damage, to search out a Temple Garden into play tapped. He then pays 1 to cast Enlightened Tutor to place a Soul Ring on the top of his deck. Jason wastes no time in casting the Soul Ring, and then he plays a Verdant Catacombs. Then pays 3 to cast Ashnod's Altar before passing the turn. Etienne plays a second Forest and casts a Pithing Needle for 1, naming Ghave, trying to lock the General down. At the end step, Jason sacks his Verdant Catacombs, taking 1 damage, and searches out Overgrown Tomb into play tapped. For Jason's turn, he pays 5 to cast Primal Vigor, then passes the turn. Etienne plays a Command Tower for his turn, and pays 3 to cast Pernicious Deed, and passes. For Jason's turn, he pays 4 to cast the King of Fog himself, Spike Weaver, which thanks to Primal Vigor, comes in with 6 +1/+1 counters on him instead of 3. He then pays 1 to equip the Skull Clamp to the Weaver. In response, however, refusing to give Jason any form of card draw, Etienne decides to pay 1 mana and sack his Pernicious Deed to destroy all cards converted mana cost 1 or less. This causes Jason to lose both his Skull Clamp and Soul Ring, while Etienne loses his Pithing Needle. Then Jason passes the turn. For Etienne's turn, he plays Hinterland Harbor for his land, and then pays 2 to cast Reality Shift to exile Spike Weaver. Jason sacks it in response, so as a result, the Manifest is skipped. Then he passes. Jason plays a Swamp and taps 3 to cast Slimefoot the Stowaway. But Etienne immediately stops it with the OG Counterspell. Then Jason passes the turn. Etienne simply plays a Breeding Pool untapped for his turn, taking 2 damage, and passes. For Jason's turn, he pays 2 to play Evolutionary Leap, and passes the turn. During the end step, Etienne pays 6 to cast Blue Sun Zenith for 3, drawing 3 new cards, and shuffling the Zenith back into the deck. For Etienne's turn, he plays a Windswept Heath and sacks it to get the Overgrown Tomb into play untapped. Then pays 1 to cast Elves of Deep Shadow and passes the turn. For Jason's turn, he pays 4 to cast Citadel Hierophants and then passes. For Etienne's turn, he plays an Underground River and pays 5 and delves 1 card to cast the first general of the game, Tasigur the Golden Fang, and then passes. For Jason's turn, he plays a Swamp and follows suit by paying 5 mana to cast his general, Ghave, Guru of Spores. But Etienne stops him cold again, paying 4 mana, including taking 1 damage from his elves, to cast Commit. This places Ghave second from the top of Jason's deck. Jason hesitantly allows the effect to resolve rather than moving Ghave back to the command zone and passes turn. Etienne pays 3 to cast Fabricate to search out Phyrexian Revoker. Then pays 2 to cast said card, naming Ashnod's Altar, sealing the card away in the process. Jason, in the meantime, taps his Hierophants for 1 and sacks it to his Evolutionary Leap to add Ghave back to his hand and bottoms his Gaia's Cradle in the process. Then Etienne passes his turn. For Jason's turn, he plays a Wooded Foothills and then casts Ghave again, which resolves this time, and thanks to Primal Vigor comes into play with 10 +1/+1 counters on it, making it the deadliest creature in play. Etienne uses Tasigur's effect, mills 2 cards, and with Jason's blessing, is gifted his Fabricate back to his hand. Then Jason passes. Etienne pays 1 for Mystic Remora, which he truly wished was around earlier this game, and passes. During the end step, Jason then pays 1 life to sack his Wooded Foothills to search out some land, but again, Etienne shuts him down by casting Shadow of Doubt, which prevents Jason from searching his library this turn, and giving Etienne a free draw. I still said the flavor text on that card should be, "No, no, no, not in my house." For Jason's turn, he pays 3 to cast Mentor of the Meek, and then wastes no time ready to move into combat. But before that, Etienne uses Tasigur's effect again, and this time he's gifted a Felwar Stone. Jason then attacks with his Ghave, and Etienne blocks with his Elves. Then Jason passes. Etienne sacks his Remora during his upkeep, and then he plays a Misty Rainforest for his land. He pays 2 and casts a Baral, Chief of Compliance. And then another 2 mana for the Llanowar stone he was gifted, and passes the turn. During the end step, Jason pays 1 to remove a counter from his Ghave, and thanks to Primal Vigor, makes 2 1/1 Saproling tokens. He then pays 1 more mana to trigger his Mentor of the Meek to draw a free card. For Jason's turn, he plays a forest and moves into combat, attacking with his 9/9 Ghave. Etienne pays 4 to use Tasigur again, and this time is gifted a Llanowar Elves. Etienne resolves to take the damage, and Jason, before any damage is dealt, pays 1 to remove a counter from Ghave to make 2 more Saprolings. He actually intends to go off and outright end the game right here, but forgets that his Ashnod's Altar is still sealed away by Phyrexian Revoker, preventing the infinite power-up combo. As a result, Etienne survives the combat, but takes 8 damage and the first commander damage of the game. In his second main phase, Jason casts Zulaport Cutthroat for 2, and pays 1 mana to use Mentor of the Meek to draw a free card before passing to Etienne. Etienne plays a Marsh Flats, and he casts a Llanowar Elves for 1 before passing. During the end step, Jason pays 1 and sacrifices a token to his Evolutionary Leap, drain lifing Etienne for 1, thanks to the Cutthroat's effect, adding a Tendershoot Dryad to his hand off its effect, and then he uses his last mana to repeat this same process, causing a second drain life, and then getting Micaias the Unhallowed to his hand. Jason starts strong by paying 1 to cast Hardened Scales. He responds by paying 4 to use Tasigur's effect again, and this time is gifted with the Mystic Remora he sacrificed earlier. Then he pays 1 to cast Swan Song, countering the Scales. However, thanks to Primal Vigor, Jason happily gains 2 2/2 Flying Bird tokens instead. Jason then goes into combat and attacks with Ghave and Mentor of the Meek, and blocks both creatures with Tasigur and Llanowar. With damage on stack, Etienne is Rainforest, sacrificing to go get an island, and pays 4 mana in total for Tasigur's effect once again. This time he's gifted an Elves of Deep Shadow. Then both creatures die, with Tasigur returning to the command zone before Jason passes his turn. Etienne's turn, he delves 7 cards and pays 1 mana to recast Tasigur. Then pays 2 for a Grim Monolith. And then recasts his Elves of Deep Shadow for 1 before passing the turn. During the end step, Jason makes 2 more Saprolings, removing a counter from Ghave, and uses his Mentor of the Meek twice to draw 2 free cards. Then sacks one of the tokens to the Evolutionary Leap, drain lifing for 1 yet again, getting Razakat the Foul-Blooded with its effect. Then he removes another counter from Ghave to make 2 more Saproling tokens. For Jason's turn, he plays a Flooded Strand and sacks it, paying 1 life to get a Savannah. He then pays 2 to cast Blood Artist. Etienne responds by paying 4 mana to use Tasigur again. This time he's gifted a Gilded Lotus. Jason then moves into combat and waves with everything except his Artist and Cutthroat. Etienne blocks Ghave, Mentor of the Meek, and a Saproling token, with each of his 2 elves and Tasigur respectively. Before damage, Jason sacrifices the Saproling token blocked by the Llanowar and the Mentor of the Meek, and adds 2 +1/+1 counters to each of his 2 bird tokens, making them 4/4s. This also causes Etienne to be drain life for 2 twice, thanks to the Artist and Cutthroat triggers. We move on to damage, and the combat damage deals Etienne a total of 12. However, during his turn, after realizing that with his next turn he didn't have a way of stopping Jason's drain life combos, unfortunately, Etienne concedes. Welcome to Cardboard MVP, where we have a quick look at the card that did the most for each player in the game. In the case of Etienne, the Tasigur player, he has to give it up to Phyrexian Revoker, because point blank, if that card wasn't there to stop Ashnod's Altar, Jason could have early on been able to make infinite creatures, or saplings in this case, and infinitely strengthen his Ghave to go for an OTK. And mark my words, if the Tasigur deck had a little bit more time or a little bit more card draw, or that Mystic Remora came out earlier, it may have well been a different game. In the case of the Ghave player, Jason, his MVP has to be Primal Vigor. Primal Vigor essentially is something that works for both players, but in this game, as you saw, the only person that got to take advantage of it was Jason. Whether it was making 2 saplings with his general, or gaining 2 bird tokens off a Swan Song for one of his spells being countered. It was just amazing. And to be truth, as I just mentioned before, if the Ashnod's Altar was available, Primal Vigor, Ashnod's Altar, and Ghave are best friends forever. What do you guys think was the most useful card for each player? Let us know in the comments down below. Okay everybody, it's time to pick our 3rd ever EDHCC Giveaway winner. Which one of these people will be taking home a foil promo, beautiful might I add, Maze of Ith? Let's spin to find out. And the winner is William Pierrot. Now, in case you're wondering why the William Pierrot and there's another name I think that was on here that had a bonus next to him. As I mentioned to you guys in the comments, we were able to get a bonus entry into the contest simply by being a follower of the channel on Twitter, which this gentleman is. So once again, congratulations, William Pierrot. I will leave my email in the description below on the channel, so make sure you to let me know your address in the next 2 weeks to send you your card. Awesome. Keep in mind, we'll be having more and more giveaways like this every now and then. I think the next one we'll do is if we hit our next goal of 1,000 subscribers. We're already almost to 750 at this point, so it's definitely a possibility. But I think when we get to 1,000, we're gonna have to do it big. And it maybe just might be for a foil Shockland. Who knows? You'll let me know in the comments if you guys have any ideas for what you'd want to have as a prize for the channel. Alright guys, that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it. A quick shout out to our EDHCC family, our subscribers if you will, who continue to grow in number with each week and each episode that we film. And guys, from the bottom of our hearts, we can't thank you enough for the support that you give, and we're forever grateful for that. So thank you very much, you're the best. And if you out there aren't already a subscriber and you want to be part of the family, smash the subscribe button and notification bells down below, and you'll know each and every time a new EDHCC video drops on YouTube. And we do weekly videos, by the way, so don't forget to like our videos, share them, comment, and most of all, enjoy them. Until next time, I'm your host, BT. Remind you to check out all the other videos on the channel. Continue to join our game. It's now your turn. Cheers!